types of hats and shirts and all these different things. So we spent some time thinking about that, and also to not run into any copyright issues with saying like V for Vendetta mask or like bait hat or something like that. So we like kind of gave everything a more generic name, got that organized. Then the next hurdle that we had to overcome was the layering of the traits. So obviously if you're in a Photoshop file, you can kind of pick and choose what layers should be on, make a nice cute little Noctua. But once we're trying to like automate this process and generate these NFTs automatically, a lot of weird combinations come out where things are layered on top of each other and they look a little funky and not really how they're supposed to be. So that's where Bueno came in, and we were able to set rules for those layers on like if they have a mask, they can't have a hat, or if they have a mask, you can't see the beak color or whatever, like those kind of things. So we were able to clean that up in Bueno, and that's why Bueno is super awesome. And we were also able to generate like a huge bulk of NFTs in Bueno, and then go in and delete out the ones that maybe like weren't layering properly or just looked kind of funky, or things that like we wouldn't really have thought about until we actually saw them put together. So that just helps with organization a lot. So it also helps with rarity. So another thing in Bueno is you can set the rarity for each trait. So we can say like, maybe we have a specific color, like a holographic or like a gold or something fancy that we only want to show up, like let's say 10 in every 1,000 NFTs that we generate or something like that. We have the ability to do that to create more rarity, more exclusivity for specific traits. And then file organization. So even after we think about all of those things, we have to think about what do the files look like that we're going to be uploading to Thirdweb. So we're going to generate a bunch of essentially PNGs from Bueno that are these like completed art files. And then it's going to generate an export of all of the metadata in a spreadsheet from Bueno, which is going to be your NFT name, its description, all of the different traits and the names of the traits, and anything else that you want to include in the metadata, and keeping that organized and syncing that up with your art files. So all of that is kind of a lot to think about. So just kind of high level talking about our process here that I just kind of went through. So Bueno, it's the best for generative NFTs specifically. So if you're not going to do a generative project, it may not be as useful. So we're going to upload our layers, name them, organize them, set the rarity of the traits, and you have the option to just mint directly through Bueno if you want to, which is a fairly new feature. They unfortunately didn't have that when we did our projects. Or you can export all of that, as I was mentioning, and move it into Thirdweb, which it gives you more customization options for what you can do, which is really great, but that means it's also more complicated. So depends on what kind of route you want to take there. Definitely encourage you guys to experiment with both platforms and just see what works the best for you. Just stick with Bueno if that's easier for now, and then learn about Thirdweb later. If you do want to dive into Thirdweb, we're going to talk more about that today. So basically what the benefit of Thirdweb is all of those different types of smart contracts that I was talking about earlier, just more robust features, more customization, things you can do with your projects. So we would import our art files and our spreadsheet of data from Bueno. We would then set the rules for who's allowed to mint our NFTs and when. And this process is actually going to turn our art and our data into NFTs, which is super exciting. So from there, they'll be publicly viewable on OpenSea, where you can just check them out, show them off, or you can resell them and get street cred. So now for the fun stuff, fun little details that we may not be thinking about until we get further into this. So I'm using David's little Noctua as our example for today. Unfortunately, he's not here. But I just wanted to show you guys the front end of OpenSea and kind of how all of this data is organized. And then we're going to show how it gets imported into Thirdweb so you guys can kind of understand the relationship between these things. So I feel like I was very confused about a lot of this until I did some test NFTs, and then I kind of figured out like, oh, this is where this goes and this is how this pulls in. So first couple of things kind of going from the top down, we have our NFT collection name. So in this case, ours was the Forest Alpha Drop. So this is just a way that you can categorize your NFTs. So we have them categorized in our Alpha Drop. So the next one we can name something else, or we can put them all into the same collection if we want. Just kind of depends on your specific project and how you want to organize things. And I'll show you the back end of that as well. I think that will help you guys understand how you can kind of like differentiate yours as well. So from there we have our individual NFT name. So this can be literally anything that you want. We just kept it simple and did numbered versions of our Noctuas. So we have like number 1 through 10 is our like founder Noctuas, and then 11 through 17 it's you guys. We have our individual NFT description. So you can keep these the same for every one of your NFTs, or you can make them different. If you want to describe like this specific piece of artwork, you can. In our case, we just kept them simple, kept them all the same. And then under properties, this is where you're going to have all of your traits listed. So the reason that it's important to have these labeled and paired correctly is so that you can generate these percentages in OpenSea. So, and this is the other benefit of having everything in one collection like we have here. So even as we add Noctuas to our collection over time, it's going to update these percentages of the traits based on how many NFTs have the specific traits. So just as an example of how we have ours set up, we have like a background trait, which can be a bunch of different things. We have the beak colors, we have body feather colors, we have clothing, which can be hoodies, jackets, shirts, costumes, all sorts of different things. Then we have our drop version. So this is just to create additional rarity for you guys, where your drop version 1, nobody else is going to have that. So that'll be super rare. Then we have eye color. Then we have head feather color. And yeah, you guys can use a structure similar to this or create pretty much anything that you want. The sky's the limit with the different traits that you can offer. And then lastly, we have our collection details. So this is the very high level. So this is going to be the first thing that you do in Thirdweb. You're going to set up your collection name, the description for the whole collection, and then whatever you want your collection thumbnail to be. Okay, so back into the trait discussion. I just want to show you guys what this actually looks like in the back end. So once you open the spreadsheet, this is basically what it's going to look like here. So it gets a little bit complicated when you look at it in this view. I don't know if you guys have ever I compare it to bulk uploading products to a website because I've done that like a million times. So the platform that we use is called WooCommerce for WordPress, and we upload a spreadsheet exactly like this to bulk import products to a site. So it's like product name, description, images, price, any variables like colors or sizes and things like that. And that's how you bulk upload your products to a site. And this is exactly the same. So you can define all of these elements, and also if you upload your art to Bueno and export, you'll get something pretty similar to this as well. You may just want to kind of clean it up a little bit before you upload to Thirdweb, which is what we did. So we kind of renamed some of our traits and whatnot in here. But so these are the basic things that you need to upload to Thirdweb in order for them to show up on OpenSea properly. So you have your NFT name. So this is really important because this is going to tie to the image that it needs to be paired with as well. So make sure that you have a field for the name, the individual NFT description. You can have a URL if you want to. It's not required. So we just have it linking to the Forest website. And then the image is the next most important thing. So when you export these from Bueno, just make sure that the file name that you have is paired up with the correct NFT name. And then all of your traits. So these are all of our traits that were exported from Bueno into a spreadsheet. So you don't have to manually do any of this stuff. It's going to do that for you. You can just go back and rename things if you want to. And then I added these two categories for the dropped version and then our image to connect it. So this big old spreadsheet is what we're going to upload to Thirdweb along with our image files. So here's an example of the full spreadsheet and what that looks like. And then all of our first 20 Noctuas that we dropped. And so you can just see how the file names are paired up with that specific NFT, those specific traits. It's basically just a data representation of the artwork. And so from there, we would upload this whole folder, the spreadsheet, and all of the art files all at once into Thirdweb, and it will organize those nicely for us. And now I want to actually take you guys into Thirdweb so you can see what the back end looks like.